I think it was an interesting debate. I think that both of them actually did fairly well, you know, overall. Lehrer maybe could have done a little bit better job of refereeing. It was, Romney kind of came off to me like Romney's tale was full of sound and fury and signifying nothing. So if you're a Shakespeare fan, you'll kind of get what I'm referring to. I think to some degree you have to believe what you're saying or it's not going to come across as sincere. I think both sides are going to play, you know, to their advantage. If a fact can be skewed one way or another, they're both going to take advantage of that. So I'm expecting that. You know, this is not my first rodeo, as they say. So, but I'm just shaking my head at Romney, going, okay, well, yeah, not so much. Actually, at one time in my life, I was a Republican because I grew up in a fairly moderate Republican community, a military town. Spent most of my life either in the military as an adult or, you know, growing up in a military town as a kid. So I'm looking forward to some of the future debates where they get more into those issues, because that's more my bailiwick. My mom and I can have, you know, rational discussions, and we can agree to disagree on topics and issues, and respect each other for it. You know, because the way we look at it, the way I was raised was, if you don't vote, don't bitch. If you don't vote, you're not doing you're fulfilling your obligations. We have the right, but with the right comes a commensurate responsibility. So if you're not fulfilling your responsibilities to maintain those rights, then you're really not part of the solution. You know, so I respect the folks that vote on the other side, whatever side that happens to be. You know, even within my own party, you know, on the Democrats now, I tend to be a moderate Democrat, or a, you know, not really blue dog, but, you know, fiscally conservative, socially liberal, you know, kind of the live and let live thing. Some libertarian traits, pro-gun, I guess, if, you know, for lack of a better term, or at least pro-Second Amendment. Not everybody should have one, but pro-responsibility with guns, as well as, you know, everybody should have the right to own one, with some exceptions, but you should be responsible with them. You know, that kind of thing. So even within the Dems, you know, we butt heads. But I respect everybody's opinion as long as you're doing something and not just sitting there on the sidelines bitching. And, you know, I'm part of that 47%. I'm a disabled vet, you know, so I get a stipend from the government, but then again, I put 10 years active duty. I've been to war. I've got some damage done from my time in service, you know, so I don't really feel like I'm sponging off the system. I think I'm receiving the benefits that were, you know, essentially a long-term disability of my employment. But with that money, I then buy things locally, I shop locally, you know, so the money comes back into the economy. And, you know, what I can't necessarily do with, you know, hard labor and stuff like that, I try and contribute back in other ways to the community, you know, doing volunteer work and things like that. So, you know, we have this responsibility, a personal responsibility, to try and take care of ourselves and take care of our families. When it comes down to it, you know, we do have an obligation to each other. You know, if you're, you know, of a biblical nature, it's, you know, yes, in some ways I am my brother's keeper. I'm not really that myself, but I like that idea of, yes, I do have a responsibility to try and leave this a little bit better place than I found it, to help somebody that isn't making it maybe as well as I, because not everybody has the same abilities. And when it comes to that, oh, well, a rising tide will lift all boats. No, they only lift the seaworthy boats. The boat that's already got a hole in it is not going to rise no matter how high that tide goes. In fact, the higher that tide goes, the worse they tend to get. You know, and so I watch the whole idea of the trickle-down economics. You know, let's not punish the job creators. Well, they're making record profits, but they're not creating the jobs. Let's help out these banks because they're too big to fail and we need them, but they're not loaning the money to help the small businesses and large businesses to create the jobs. So that rising tide thing, that analogy just plain doesn't work. So why do they keep using this? You know, so that's one of the reasons that I tend to be more Democrat than Republican, because let's help fix these people's boats so that they can float, so that when the tide goes up, they do get something out of it and not just, you know, floundering on the bottom and getting worse and worse and worse.